There was a time in this fair land when the railroad did not run, when the wild, majestic mountains stood alone against the sun. Long before the white man and long before the wheel, when the green, dark forest was too silent to be real.
Hey, it's a great day. This is my current Energizer. I've been home for about a week off the trail, so I thought I'd start putting together the first of the two videos, post-trail videos I said I would do. This one's going to cover my equipment that I used on the trail and what worked, what didn't work, kind of my thoughts on that. And then I'm also going to cover my nutrition, what I started with, what I ended with, and I'm going to go through a resupply box that I had, and I'm going to start answering some of your questions that you posed. I got 80 questions that came through, and my sister is probably one of the most organized people that I know. She actually went through and copy pasted all the questions, put them on an Excel spreadsheet, and then color coded them by topic. And so I'll be going through those. Some of them are redundant, or they can be grouped together. And so I'll do that. I'll put those together, and I'll be answering some of those on this video, and then some of them, because they're more aligned with my lessons learned topics that I want to cover, I'll cover those in the next post-trail video. So as far as equipment is concerned, I want to start this off by giving the caveat that I did not factor in cost when I bought my equipment. I bought what I wanted to buy. I'm retired. I make a good living. I own a business with my son. I closed a business just because another business because it was just taking too much time. So I'm not financially strapped, and so I bought the equipment that I thought would work for me, and cost was not a factor. I hiked with a young man. He was a barista by trade. He didn't have a lot of money, but he was out on the trail, and he purchased all of his equipment. It was all Chinese knockoffs that he bought online from Amazon, and he prided himself on his equipment. He'd sit there and go, "Look, I only paid $80 for this tent, and it's great." And the reality is that he was crushing the miles, and he was out having a great time on the trail and doing great. And so I want to start this video off that I'm going to show you the equipment I used. I'm very happy with all my equipment, but based on a variety of factors, including cost, it may not be the equipment that you want to use. You'll have to decide what's best for you, and you don't need the best equipment, the most expensive equipment to do the trail. I mean, you need a good set of legs and a good mental attitude, and that'll get you to the end. So with that, I'll start off with my big four for doing the trail. For my backpack, I had the Hyperlight Southwest 3400. That was the backpack that I used. I used the all black version. There is a difference. Typically, you see the standard white version of the backpack. The all black version, the material to cover the base of the backpack is actually a little thicker. I wanted something that I knew was going to last the whole trail, and I wouldn't have issues with it. And also, I know I'm kind of a klutz and not very neat, and so I figured the white version wouldn't look very white at the end of my trail, and so I figured black would just hold up better. One of the concerns that people have about the all black version is that they're worried that things will melt. Their food will melt, their chocolate will melt inside the bag because it's all black and not white. I never had an issue with things melting on the inside of the bag my entire time on trail. on the outside. If I had food on one of the outside pockets, which are black, I did have some issues where either energy bars would melt or chocolate bars would melt. But the white version of the backpack has black pockets, so it wouldn't be any advantage for you to have. You'd have the same thing that would happen with the all black version. Very happy with the rucksack. It did extremely well. It held up real well. I've got some nicks and scrapes on it, but I could use it for another through hike, and I think it would hold up real good. I had up to 40 pounds in the pack at one point, probably more than that, for the food, and it did good. It did, I never worried about it. I used it when I did training hikes, and I got used to it. So that would be something I would recommend. I had a training rucksack that I would use a lot of the times, but I would alternate and use the rucksack. So I got used to its feel and how to put things into it. Some people prefer the mesh pockets. It's a different model for the Hyperlite. I never quite understood the mesh pockets. They don't hold up as well. If you look at people at the end of the hike, you can see their mesh pockets are kind of ripped and torn and that sort of thing. I think the intent is that you can see what's in the pockets, which I don't understand that type of logic. If somebody handed you your rucksack with everything in it at Campo and you had never seen it before, by the end of the first 2 weeks, you know exactly where everything is in your rucksack. And if somebody blindfolded you and says, hey, I want you to find X, you could grab your rucksack and just through feel alone know where everything is in the rucksack. So to me, I never bought into the whole mesh pocket concept. My pockets held up really well. A couple items I bought from Hyperlite to accessorize the backpack I'm going to go through right now, since they're part of the rucksack themselves. One of them is these shoulder pockets that good storage area. These things, excellent design. Excellent design. I mean, they're exactly with the little mesh here where I can put in my earplugs and the little pocket inside and the size. Outstanding design, extremely poorly made. I'm surprised Hyperlite even sells these things, because it is the worst piece of equipment that I bought, and I would not recommend them to anyone. You can see for this one, the zippers actually on both of them stopped working well, even before I got on trail. Just from training, they stopped working well, and by the time I hit the halfway mark, they didn't work at all. I had to keep the clasp up on the top like this, just to keep my phone or my camera in. And I didn't keep anything major in these pockets, just a camera in one and my scan disc, my music player with it, and then the other one I kept my DJI pocket camera. So it wasn't a lot of equipment, it wasn't heavy or anything else like that. It's just so poorly made. So the zippers broke. And then if you look on the back here, the actual clasp that clasp onto the rucksack, they broke as well. So I had to cut holes into the material. And for this one, you can see where it's zip tied onto my my rucksack. And this one, I used a piece of cord and tied it onto my rucksack. And as you can tell from the bottom of this, this one actually has holes on the bottom that worn through, which I was pretty happy with, because when it rained, water would get in it, and I didn't want it soaking my camera, so the hole that was worn on the bottom actually allowed it to drain. So I didn't mind that, but it's just an example of how poorly made these things are. I would never ever recommend buying these again. Buy different shoulder pockets. And again, I'm surprised Hyperlite makes them. Quality of their backpack was just outstanding. These pocket shoulder strap containers, they're just horrid. And I talked to other people that had them as well, and they were suffering problems. So it's not just the two I had. It seems to be indicative of the product itself. So not recommend those. One of the other things I bought from Hyperlite are these pods. and they're made out of the same material, Dyneema composite, Cuban fiber. And I bought 2 large and 1 small. And the nice things about them is they keep things kind of together, and they fit right into the pocket. So they kind of, right into the backpack. So they stack up really nice in the backpack. Again, I bought 2 large, 1 small. If I had to do it again, I just would have bought 3 large. The weight between the large and the small is negligible, and sometimes I could have used the extra space for the small one. I used one of the large ones for all my personal items, like my extra clothes. I keep my my stove in it, and my power, my electronics that weren't immediately accessible on the backpack, they would stay in there. That's what I kept one for, just all my personal items, and then extra socks. And then the other 2 I would use for food. And sometimes only one would be full, and then sometimes both would be really full. So those were, and they're real good. Again, they're stackable. You can just pull them out, and you're not worried about a bunch of junk being inside your rucksack. These were outstanding. I would recommend them. I thought they were well worth it to purchase, and I would buy them again. Another accessory I bought with the backpack, it didn't come from Hyperlite, but Z-Packs. They carry Z-Packs has a shoulder strap water bottle container. It's supposed to carry a 1 liter bottle. I found the 700 liter bottle just fit better, and it felt better up on top. And so that's what I carried into it, although it will hold a 1 liter bottle for it. It held up pretty good. The straps did not. The straps that hold it to the shoulder, to the rucksack, did not work out too well. If you notice, it's this one. You can see partially still containing, holding on, but I'm also using zip ties to hold it onto my rucksack. And this one here, again, a cord is holding it onto the rucksack because the straps just didn't last. But the pocket itself held up really good, and I'm happy with it. It held my water bottle and held it where I wanted to be the entire time. So I'm glad with that. I would just reinforce the straps that hold it before I got on trail. That would be one of the recommendations I would have. But again, I really liked the backpack itself. I thought it was great. I love the pockets on the waistband. I thought that was really good. I would keep all my immediate equipment that I needed, like my headlamp and some other items, my toothbrush, suntan lotion on one side, and then on the other side I would have energy bars and drink mix packets that I could easily assess. And so that's what I kept in the other one, and really happy with the backpack. Not happy with the pockets containers that Hyperlite makes. So I would definitely recommend the backpack. So that's the rucksack. For my sleeping bag, I had the Western Mountaineering 10-degree bag. That's what I carried at the beginning of my hike, and I carried this entire thing throughout my entire hike. It's down. It's very lightweight, a little pricey. The additional items that you can get with the when you're ordering one, I got the hood version, so it has a special hooded area with it. I got that, and I got the full zipper that goes with it. Those are options that you can have for them. I thought both of those options were well worth it. I sleep cold at night, and so I was pretty happy to have. It's a little fluffier, and it took up more room in the bag than a lot of other sleeping bags. But I'm glad I had it. Probably in Northern California, it was overkill. In fact, I had a few thru-hikers kind of chide me about having such a heavy backpack or a heavy sleeping bag when I was in Sayad Valley. But by the time I got to Washington and the nights were getting cool, I'm certainly glad I had it. And for the nights that it was kind of warm, what I would do is I would just unzip the whole thing and throw it over me and sleep right directly onto my sleeping pad, and I would just have it over me as a quilt, and it worked out very well that way. Again, overkill for parts of the trail, but overall the bag just held up really well. I never got cold on trail, and just absolutely think it's a quality bag. It is down, so you can't allow the moisture to get too much on it. You're going to have to dry it out and let the sun hit it if you have any condensation. But the quality of the bag is just incredible. I would recommend it to anybody that's looking for an all-around good bag that you can use throughout the entire trail, and you're not going to get cold. It's really good. Again, Western Mountaineering 10-degree bag. So that's the sleeping bag. For the pad I used Neo Air Extra Light. Really good. Kind of sounds like a bag of potato chips when you're getting it. But this one is the woman's cut version. It's about 67 inches long. I can't remember the width of it. And it has more baffles than the regular version. And it has a higher R factor, so it keeps you warmer. Again, those are things I was looking for in it. You just need to blow it up, but it gets down pretty small size. And I thought it worked well the entire time. Some people say that these have slow leaks. Supposedly, the company has redone the valve, and that was one of the issues. I never had a leak issue with it. I think what some people refer to as a slow leak is actually just the air inside it cooling and then compressing over the evening, and so it's not as full. When you think about it, these things really don't use a lot of air for what they do. I mean, it's really not a lot of air to keep you off the ground, a couple inches off the ground. So what happens is when you blow into this, the air is not 98 0.6 or something like that, but it's warmer than ambient temperature when it comes out of your lungs. It cools down over time to become ambient temperature, and then if you have a serious drop of 20-30 degrees between the daytime temperature and the evening temperature, again, that's going to cool down the air inside the air mattress, and it's going to compress, and so it's not going to be as full as it was. And so typically what I found when I had big differences between the daytime temperature and nighttime temperature, when I got up to pee in the middle of the night, when I got back into the tent, I would just a couple more puffs into the air mattress, and that would fill it back up, and I'd be good till morning. And then those evenings where I really didn't have a large temperature change, it would be fine the whole time. So that's what I had with a sleeping pad. Do recommend this. It worked well for me, and now that the company has redone the valve, and some people had issues with the valve, I think well worth product. The other thing I bought was a luxury item to go with it. Is I had a Sea to Summit Air pillow. And this thing's just absolutely awesome. It would fold up and go right with my air mattress, and it would fit into the same bag as the air mattress comes with. So I put them both together, and this thing, it doesn't weigh much at all, and it was just wonderful to have as a pillow. It worked really well the entire time. And you can throw it in the wash machine to make it, get it clean. I wouldn't dry it, but you can throw it in the wash machine to keep it clean. One of the things I did at the beginning of the trail is I put these little Velcro strips on it, and I had Velcro strips on my air mattress, so it kind of kept it in place during my hike, and I didn't have to worry about it moving around on the air mattress. It would stay where it needed to stay. And those worked pretty well up until probably Washington, and then they just kind of, the Velcro strips fell apart, and I never bothered to buy new ones for it. But outstanding little pillow. Again, this is Sea to Summit. This is the regular size that they have, and it worked it worked really well. For my tent, I think you've all seen it. It's the Z-Packs Duplex tent. Absolutely loved it. The Duplex comes in 4 different colors, and you probably see that online. The one that's different, all the other colors are the same. It's the same tent except for the color. The one that's a different color, but the tent is different, is the spruce green version. That's the one I have, is the spruce green version. And it's just made out of a slightly thicker Dyneema composite. Again, I was looking for durability in the tent, and it's not so transparent, and I absolutely love this tent. It costs a little bit more for the spruce green version. I would highly recommend you get that one. If you're going to buy it, just go ahead and spend the 30 extra bucks and get it. I had titanium tent poles, and I counted my tent poles every single morning, so I knew I wasn't going to lose them. That seems to be something that people do on trail, but I would recommend this tent to anyone. It's extremely lightweight. You use your trekking poles as the poles for it, and it held up really well in some pretty windy conditions. It did great. I like the 2-man version. I saw people on 1-man tents, and most of their equipment was outside, and they just couldn't do anything in their tent but sleep. And a lot of times you just want to be inside, and you got your stuff there, and you don't have to worry about all the bugs and that sort of thing. And I like the idea of being able to lay out in one area, and then the entire other side of the tent, I could just lay my equipment out, and I didn't have to worry about it, and it was right there for me to use. And so the 2-man version, I just highly recommend. I thought this tent held up extremely well. Now, one of the things I did buy and I used with my tent, although Z-Packs will say it's not needed, was a ground sheet. I spent $15, went online, and bought Tyvek ground sheet. And I would use it. I actually bought this because I figured I'd do more cowboy camping, and I didn't want to break out the tent, so I'd lay this out and then lay my air mattress on it. And that's why I bought it. I didn't like cowboy camping. I did it a few times, and although it's nice to be under the stars and that sort of thing, I just didn't like getting up in the middle of the night and pulling bugs off of me. And that's kind of what would happen when I would do cowboy camping. I liked the bugs being outside and me being inside when I slept. And so I didn't do a lot of that. But I use this as a ground cloth because I did read that even on most tents, and including the Z-Packs, where the tent fails is the bottom of that. Just too many twigs and rocks and all that kind of stuff. Although, Dyneema composites, stronger than Kevlar, I think just eventually it can break down. So I would use the Tyvek as a ground sheet up underneath my tent, and I think it saved my $600 tent. I can use that tent for years and years and years because it's in such great condition. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Tyvek ground cloth. And what I really like about this thing is you can just wash it. After it gets dirty, you just throw it in the wash. I wouldn't dry it, but when it would get dirty, I would, and I'd come to a town, I'd throw it in with my clothes and that sort of thing, and it would clean up really nice. And it saved my tent, and it was a nice sheet to use just anytime. And I think if I was going to do it over again, one of the pieces of equipment I would get rid of is my butt pad. I had a butt pad that I would use, and it was on one of my outside pockets, and it worked really nice. It was a nice little butt pad. I can't remember where I got this one, but I would actually probably get rid of this, and I would just keep the Tyvek ground sheet on one of the outside pockets and lay that out. And that way I'd be out of the dirt, and I could lie down if I wanted to during a break. Some of my more experienced or working on Triple Crown kind of hikers I hiked with, that's what they did, and I thought that was that was a good takeaway. But I would definitely buy a Tyvek, and as soon as you get it, because it feels different and it makes a lot of noise, just throw it in the wash machine on cold, and it'll take away that sound. And then just dry it out on the line, and I think you'd be really happy with it. For a ground cloth, you need to cut it so it's just slightly smaller than the footprint of your tent, because what you don't want to do is it being sticking out, and then the rain comes down, and then it pools up underneath your tent. It gathers and pools up underneath your tent. So you don't want to have that happen with your ground cloth. So those are the big 4 items that I carried on trail. Again, happy with all 4 of the ones that I had. I think they were great. And the accessories, except for the shoulder pockets on the Hyperlite. So now what I'm going to talk about is the clothing I wore on trail or packed with me at different parts of the thru-hike. So start off, my hat is probably one of the most recognizable features from my videos. So the hat I wore is the Real Deal hat. This type of hat was made famous in the movie Zombieland, starring Woody Harrelson. He actually wore the original style of the Real Deal hat. This is the vented model. I lived in Key West for a few years after I retired from the military, had a business down there. And I would just wear it when I was going to work or just out having a great time. And it was my hiking hat as well. And so when it came time to hike in the PCT, I just grabbed what was around the house, and I enjoy this hat. It held up really well. Keeps the the sun off my eyes and off my neck, and worked great. It was the only one I did see on trail the whole time. So that was the hat. As far as going down, the buff. I can't remember who made my buffs. I've got a number of buffs. Again, they come all from Key West when I was down there. I would wear them for different reasons, and I just grabbed one that was just laying around the house, and that's what I would use. Buffs are really good. In today's era of COVID-19, it was nice just to be able to pull up and use it as a mask. But I could wipe my glasses off with it. I could use it. It actually became a pot holder. When I wanted to bring my pot inside the tent, I would lay it down and hot pot would go on top of it. Just multi-used piece of equipment. I don't know who made this one, but I know Buff makes a number of buffs, and the company, and just recommend having one when you go hiking. As far as shirts, I had North Face, both the short sleeve version and the long sleeve version, and I carried both of these the entire time and would rotate between them, or I'd keep one clean for when I was going into town and I didn't want to smell too bad. And a longer sleeve version, just depending on what was going on and how I wanted to work with the sun. Why North Face? The shirt fit well. It wasn't too tight, it wasn't too loose, it just felt good on the body. It had a good SPF, so it kept the sun off of me, and it was quick dry. I could put a totally soaking shirt on my body, and within a half hour, if the sun was out, or even if it wasn't out, it was just warm outside, the shirt would be totally dry. And so that's why I picked them. Both of them held up real well. There's some stains on them that will never come out, but that's just kind of typical of being a thru hiker. Clean becomes relative as you go through. So I'm really happy with both shirts. No holes, nothing on both shirts. They held up real well, and they performed real well during the time. Again, it's a North Face. It's just a quick dry shirt. For shorts, I know everybody loved my shorts. Made by Asics. Look, I've worn a version of these shorts for 20 years. I used to run in Asics until they were just hurting my knees too bad, and I switched over to Hoka's. But I've always loved the shorts. And why so short? It goes back to my running days. I don't like anything on my legs when I run. Even that extra bit of material that has no value whatsoever, it just bothers me when I'm running. I don't like anything on my legs when I run, and that kind of carried over when I was hiking as well. I just don't like anything on my legs. I very rarely wore any pants on the trail. I could probably count on one hand the number of times I put on long pants on the trail, just because it just affects my performance so bad. And these are, again, it's just a quick dry running shorts. They work great for me, and they have a liner inside them, and so it's underwear as well. I carried 2 pairs. One I would put in the rucksack, the other one I carried I'd wear, and because they were underwear as well, every few days I would just switch them, and then when I got to a stream, I'd go a little downstream, I'd rinse them out, and then let a pair dry on the rucksack as I was walking along. And I would try to keep one pair at least, clean, so when I was going into town, I didn't smell too bad. So in 2 pair by themselves are lighter than 1 pair of most hiking shorts. And so I didn't, I had no issues carrying 2 pair. They held up pretty good. You can see where the seam here is starting to come apart just a little bit. But I mean, the abuse I put them through, I'm really happy with them. I'll use them for running for the next year or two, and then finally toss them. But really happy with the shorts. Really happy with them. As far as socks, I had Darn Tough socks that I used, 3 different pairs. I started off in the desert with Darn Tough, but they weren't the regular hiking socks. They were a road race biking sock, because they were real thin, because I was worried about sweat in the shoes. That's one of the worst mistakes I've made on the trail. First part of the trail, I suffered some horrendous blisters. I never talked about that during the videos, but I did. I had some really bad blisters, and it was making no sense to me because I was wearing hookahs. I never had blisters with hookahs before, couldn't figure it out, and then finally I realized it was the socks. They were just too thin, so I doubled up on my socks. I only had the racing socks at the time. I doubled up on them, and immediately my feet began to heal. So by the time I got to Canyon Meadows South, I switched out, and in my box, my resupply box in Canyon Meadows South, I had 3 pairs of the regular Darn Tough hiking socks, and these lasted me all the way through to the end of the trail, and I would highly recommend these. They're just outstanding. Great sock. Had no issues with them. Had no blister issues because of them. I had 3 pair. That goes back to kind of military. You always have 3 pairs of socks, OD green, that sort of thing. I probably could have done with just 2 pair. You have one on the feet, and then you have another one that you rinse out and you dry off. It's amazing how good a clean pair of socks does on the feet. The socks do get dirty, and it was amazing how well the socks held up, and if you have a good pair of clean socks on your feet, what it does to your feet. So I could have done with probably 2 pairs. I like the idea of having 3 pairs because I had that 1 pair that was always clean, and then particularly in the Sierras, I had that 3rd pair, and I just threw it at the bottom of my sleeping bag, and that way at night, when it was getting cold, and I'm a cold sleeper, I would have that clean pair of socks I could put on my feet, and they would keep me warm in the Sierra. So I'm glad I had the 3 pair. But Darn Tough, and buy the regular hiking socks. Don't buy some thin socks, and you won't. And to me, I didn't have any issues, so I'm really happy with the socks I had. For my shoes, like I said earlier, I've been running in hookahs for about 7 years now. They just done wonders for my knees and ankles. Before that, I was starting to have issues with Asics, just getting old, and busted up body. And a ultra marathoner, friend of mine says, "Hey Mike, go to hookahs and the Superfeet inserts." I did, and I have never had an issue with my feet since then. For the trail, I was going to go with the Moffats and start with them. And I think that's what's on my list that I've got on the trek, is I was going to go with the Moffats. And my feet swelled to the point where I just didn't go with those at all. I trained in the Moffats quite a bit, but I didn't like how tight they were on the toe, so I didn't go with the Moffats. I actually went with the Speed Goats the entire time on trail. These are the Speed Goats 3. Why the Speed Goat 3 instead of the Speed Goat 4? Well, because the Speed Goat 4 came out, and so the Speed Goat 3s were on sale, and so I got a bunch of them. I wore 6 pairs of Speed Goat 3s while I was on trail the entire time. Switched them out about every 500 miles, and that's about as much as you're going to get out of the shoe. I know some other shoes last longer and you'll get more miles out of them. The Hokas, they're a soft shoe. They're going to save your feet, but they're just not going to last as long. So every 500 miles you need to switch them out because they're going to blow out. But they worked wonders while I had them. I had the mid-weights. That's the higher ankle support. I had those in the Sierra to accommodate my Catula K10 trail compounds, so the strap wouldn't be going over my bare ankle. But otherwise, it was a Speed Goat 3 shoe, and found these to work really well. And again, I used the Superfeet green inserts inside them, and that really gives really good arch support. And also because of the stiff back to it, and the Hoka is a soft shoe, this would keep the rocks from poking right into my foot. So the combination was very effective, and really didn't have any issues with my feet, besides the blisters because I was wearing the wrong type of socks. So that's the clothing that I wore. Other pieces of clothing that I packed with me at different points. I think all of you seen my little hoodie that I would wear, little ball cap, cap, and I don't heat last. I have no idea who makes this thing. I've had it for years. It's just the one I wear when I go out running, and so I just grabbed it, and it worked great. I wore it pretty much during all points of the trail, in the desert, in the Sierra, in Oregon. If it was cool in the morning and you saw it on the videos, I would have the cap on. And then I also liked it at night because I would wear this at night and just keep it on, and it would keep my head warm at night while I was sleeping. So it got a lot of use. So I'd recommend some type of beanie ball cap, or cap, not ball cap, but cap, to carry with you the entire time. This one worked great. For my puffy, I started off with this in the desert, and I carried it the entire time on trail. This one's Mountain Hardwear. The puffy, extremely lightweight, packs down real compact. What I'm surprised about it is how incredibly warm it is. I mean, you look at it and you go, there's no way this thing's going to keep me warm. You put it on and it's just incredible. It is down-filled. I bought the hood version of it, and I found that to be really nice, even with my little cap. On really cold mornings, I would put this up and put it around me, and I would just be warm and toasty. So I would recommend this piece of equipment. Again, Mountain Hardwear, the puffy. I carried it the entire time on the trail, and it worked great the entire time on the trail. For my pullover, this is a Smart Wool 150 weight pullover. This I didn't start off with on the trail. I had it in my resupply box at Canadian Meadow South. I wanted to use it for the Sierra to just have a layer of protection. And so I started carrying it in the Sierra, really happy with it, and I continued to carry it all through the end. I was concerned that as I got into Oregon and Washington and there would be a lot of rain, down is great, like my puppy is all down, it's great, when it's dry. But if it gets wet, it provides no type of warmth. Whereas the smart wool, it can be wet and it still provides warmth. So I carried this thing throughout from Kenny Meadow South all the way to the northern terminus, and really happy with it. Very, very good piece of gear. Again, smart wool, 150 weight pullover. Really nice. With that, I had smart wool 250 weight PhD wind pants that I had with me. These I picked up in Kenny Meadow South. They were in my bag. I gave them to my wife in Tahoe. I was kind of done with them, and then in Snoqualmie Pass, they were back in my resupply box because I was concerned about the cold up in the northern Cascades. I think I wore them once in the northern Cascades. That was it. But I'm glad I had them because you could tell that it could get real cold up there if it wanted to. And I was just lucky. If I were to do it over again, I would probably not get the 250 weight. I would probably get the 150 weight. I think that would have been enough. And they're kind of heavy on my legs. And like I said, I don't like anything on my legs. And so I probably wore them half a dozen times when it was really cold, but as soon as I could take them off and get something off my legs, I got these things off my legs. So I would go with just for me, I would go with the 150 weight if I were to do it again and have those. For my rain gear, I had Vertex pants and top. I'm looking for the top. Here it is. It's folded up. And so these you get off the Z-Packs website. Vertex, very extremely lightweight. They fold up. This is the top version. These are the pants. But they worked really, really well. Real happy with them. I carried this the entire time on the PCT. When I wanted a nice windbreak, it's not just for the rain. When I wanted something to break the wind because it was cold, I would put these things on. When I was going through brush that was covered in wet dew, I would put these on. The parts of the trail, Northern California, Oregon, and a couple times in Washington, when I knew I'd be going through areas that were pretty heavy in poison oak, I would put these on, and it just kept me well protected and extremely lightweight. You know, they are pricey. I'm going to say that they are pricey, but I carried them the entire time. They held up real well, and I'm very happy with the rain gear. Again, you get them off the Z-Packs website. Vertex, the pants, and the jacket worked really well. For gloves, I had the OR glove liners and shells that I had with me. Really didn't use these all that much. Sometimes in the Sierra, but not that much. I did have the gloves sent to me when I was in the northern Cascades because I was worried about the cold. Wound up not using them. Glad I had them with me, but I wound up not using them. I just didn't use gloves as much as I thought I would. But this is a really good pair. This is a good pair of liners or liners here, and then the shells. And I use the shells, for the few times that I had mosquito issues in the Sierra. And I would just wear these. And these I kept with me the entire time on the trail, the shells, because I was worried. And they're good wind protection. I did put them on a couple times when the wind was really cold, and I wanted something just to block the wind. And so I carried these the entire time on the trail. These I carried through the Sierra, got rid of them in South Lake Tahoe, and then picked them up again in Snoqualmie Pass. And carried them to the end of the trail. And so, really good. They work great. Glad I had them at the times I did have them. For the Sierra, one of the things that I did have with me is I had a top and bottom polypropylene. This is a lightweight issue polypropylene. This is military grade polypro. I've had it for years. I got it from the military. But what I would do with these is when I go to bed at night, these would be actually at the bottom of my sleeping bag. And with the socks, I put the socks on, and then I would put these on just over my clothes. They would just go right up over my clothes, and I stayed toasty warm the entire time while I was in the Sierra. Between the bag and these and the socks and the hat, I slept well and didn't have any problems. I got rid of these in South Lake Tahoe and didn't need them after that. But I'm glad I had them when I was going through the Sierra, and that just depends on you. If you're a warm sleeper, you probably don't need them. If you're a cold sleeper, having another base layer is really nice, and this was just a nice lightweight piece of equipment. One of the last things that I had, I'm looking around to see, yeah, I've got a couple other things. One of the last things I had is a bug net. I carried a bug net. This one's from Sea to Summit head net. And I used it in the desert, the Sierra, Northern California, Oregon. I mean, I used it everywhere. Nice little piece of equipment. It weighs nothing. It stayed in my outer pocket, and it was always available if I wanted to put it on. Now, I would put on picaridin, an alternate to having DEET made by Sawyer Products. I would put on picaridin, particularly when the mosquitoes were pretty horrendous, and it seemed to do a great job. But even when the mosquitoes would stay off of me because I'd be covered in picaridin, they would fly around the face and just be a nuisance. And so I found, even if you've got some type of mosquito lotion on, just having a head net to keep them away from the face and they're not just bothering with your eyes, I found that to be very, very helpful. And then, other times when you're just worried about black flies or horse flies or something like that, it just keeps them away from the face. Works well with the hat, and so highly recommend having one of those. One of the pieces of equipment that I bought and I never used, and I probably regret that now, is I bought some Dirty Girl gaiters. And because I wanted to keep the dirt out of my shoes. And so I bought these. If you can tell, these are brand new. They've never been used. And I was going to use them on trail. But during my training hikes, I wasn't getting a lot of dirt in my shoes. I wasn't getting a lot of dirt in the shoes and socks. And so I was like, well, I thought this would be a piece of equipment that I really wouldn't need. And as it turns out, I got a lot of dirt in my shoes and socks while on trail. And so these might have helped quite a bit had I brought them with me and used them. So that's one piece of equipment that I did buy, didn't use, and wish I had used during my thru hike. Again, Dirty Girl gaiters. I think they would have kept a lot of the dirt out of my shoes and socks. So what I'm going to do now is go over some miscellaneous items that I carried on the trail. First one is my Sawyer squeeze filtration system. It's the regular Sawyer squeeze. It's not the mini. Really happy with this piece of equipment. It worked well throughout the entire time. The only thing I would say is carry some extra gaskets with you. You can buy these at Home Depot. It's just the garden, your garden hose gaskets. I would carry a couple extras with you, or have a couple in your resupply boxes. Those seem to go pretty quick, or you lose them, and that's an issue. So I always had a couple in my backpack, and every once in a while I'd have one in a resupply box. But the Sawyer squeeze worked extremely well. I filtered all of my water, no matter where I was, and it kept good. I should have cleaned this out more, back flushed it more often than I did. But even with my poor maintenance, this thing held up really well. One of the pieces of equipment I no longer have now is I had a CNOC bag. It's a big 2-liter bag, and I would used to hook it up to this thing, fill it with water, hook it up to this thing, and then take the water and put it in my Smart water bottles, which I used. I had two 1 liter water bottles, smart water bottles, and then one 700 milliliter water bottle that I would carry with me, and they were just smart water bottles. And then I had the CNOC bag. Well, the CNOC bag blew out somewhere in the Sierra, and I just never replaced it after that. The seam blew out on it, so it didn't last too long. It was great up until then, but then it broke, and I just didn't bother with it, and I would just go from one smart water bottle, and I would hook it up to this thing, and then I would squeeze it out and put it in the other smart water bottle, and that's what I did for the rest of the trail. And the smart water bottles lasted the entire time, so I was happy with those. So that was a good piece of equipment. For cooking, this is the Varga Titanium Bot 700. Really nice. This is a little pricey for a pot. But what I really like about this one, it just seems to be the right size to make mountain house meals or backpack country meals or any type of meal that you want to use. It just seems to be the right size for that. And this one has a sealable lid. So I could either cook with it or I could cold soak with it. And I did both on trail, sometimes in the same day. And so that's one of the advantages I find with this pot over other pots. Is it has a sealable lid, and I never had it leak on me. It worked fine. One of the things is I never cooked with the lid on it. I would cook with it open faced, and then if I needed to seal it off to allow the dehydrated food to absorb, I would just put it on upside down like this, and that would keep the rubber seal here from getting too hot. And I think that's where people have issues with it. So I never cooked with the lid on it, and then when I wanted it to be on a hot surface, I would just turn it upside down. The lid's made to do that, and then if I was cold soaking, of course I'd flip it over and seal it up, and it just worked absolutely good. I'm very happy with my V-Bot. Well worth the money that I paid for it. For my stove, this is an MSR Pocket 2. Worked really good the entire time. As you can tell, it breaks down to be this little bitty thing here, and then you can just move it and set it up, and it fits right on any type of the fuel canisters that you buy. Depending on where I was, the small canisters work good, but I also like the big canisters, just depending on if I knew I was going to be going for a while. The larger canisters were nice, and it provides a better base for when you're cooking. But as you can tell, this thing just goes out nice, and it distributes the heat really nice. Just really, really happy with that. I bought 2 very small Bic lighters. There's one piece of equipment that was redundant in my backpack. I had 2 of them. One I kept inside the bag, and the other one I kept on one of the outside pockets. And both of those lasted the entire trip. So it's you buy 2 of those teeny ones, it's going to last you the whole time. So really happy with this. For morning constitution, making a cat hole. Of course, the deuce of spades trowel. Really happy with this thing. It held up really good. This is the number 2. It's 0.6 ounces, and it held up really well. A couple nicks on it, but it did what it needed to do. As you can see, it has a dummy cord on it. I have a tendency to lose things, so I put a cord on it, and then I would secure it to the outside of my bag and then put it in one of the pockets so I would never lose it, and I never did lose it. You don't actually ever touch waste with one of these. It's just for the dirt. And so the other thing that this thing would be good for is channeling water from streams that were very low, and I needed to move the water and have it flow out so I could put it into a water bottle. And so, as you saw in some of my videos, this thing worked really good for that. And so that's another use for the deuce of spades trowel. For my spork, long-handled Vulcan titanium, again with the dummy cord. worked great. Never lost it, again, because I had the dummy cord. Never lost it. Never had to worry about it. Kept up clean. Very lightweight. And I would recommend the longer one just because it's easier to dig into the pot. Or if you're eating directly out of the Mountain House packets or the Backpack Country packets, you can get in there without having to get your whole hand in there and get dirty. So, it worked out really well. For morning constitution, I started off with having a field bidet and using it. Extremely effective. I mean, it worked real well. But I think after, I don't know if even through the Sierra, I just stopped using this thing. I found that with proper positioning, we'll leave it at that, with proper positioning, and the moist towelettes, that was effective all by itself. I didn't need to use the extra water in the bidet. It just wasn't necessary. So with that, these dehydrated moist towelettes, these are the bomb. You get about 500 of them for about $30. Each one of my resupply boxes had them in it. And that's what I would use to clean up all the time, are these little bitty things. It's like having moist towelettes without carrying the extra water weight. So when you need to use them, you just put them in the hand and you put a little bit of water on them. And it doesn't take much, and they'll just pop up, and they're extremely strong, and they're moist, and they work really well. I would use 2 in the morning for the morning constitution. Usually 1 would do the trick for any backside work, and then I would have another one that while my pants are down, I would just clean all the private areas and try to keep that part of my body clean. And so 2 of them would be used in the morning, and then I would use 2 at night. Before I was allowed to get into my sleeping bag, this was a rule to me, before I was allowed to get in my sleeping bag, I would break out 2 of these, get them all moist, and I had to wash my face, my hands, my legs, and my feet. Everything, all that had to be cleaned before I could get on my air mattress or my sleeping bag. And so I wound up using 4 of these a day, very small, very lightweight, compact, extremely effective. And so highly recommend these. And lastly, this is my knife that I use during the Pacific Crest Trail. People always wonder, I need a knife for protection and all that kind of stuff. And no, this is the knife I use, Swiss Army knife. It's just got a nice little blade on it. It's got a nice little pair of scissors on it. And that's it. A pair of tweezers, toothpick, very, very small. Primarily, I use this for opening packets, cutting the cheese blocks that I would buy in town, and that's about it. That's all it would ever be used for. So I would not recommend getting a knife that's any larger than this. You simply don't need it on the trail. This was plenty of knife for what your purposes are while you're on trail. Plenty of knife. So those are some of the miscellaneous items that I had on trail. I forgot this. This is a waterproof bag I bought, and I got this in South Lake Tahoe. I was worried about hanging food while I was on trail after I got done with a bear canister, and so I bought that along with some long cord and string. It was a great bag. I used it in town a couple times when I wanted to do resupply and not carry the heavy sack with me. I used it, and I did hang my food one time on the entire trail. It was in the Mike Urich cabin where the place was known to have mice, so I hung food there. I did not hang food the entire time I was on trail. I either had the bear canister with me where it's required from Canyon Meadows South to Canyon Meadows North. I had my bear canister, and otherwise I never hung the food. I always had it with me, and to me what I did is I just didn't camp in places where bears were known to be habituated. We're in the most popular areas. Everybody wants to be around the lake. I would camp in the less popular campsites. And the same thing with mice or rodents. When I got up to Oregon or Washington, I didn't go to where everybody else went. I went to the sites where it was along the trail, but it wasn't the most popular, and the animals weren't habituated. I never had a problem with bears, never had a problem with mice. The entire time I was on trail, bothering me. But I bought it for that reason. I used it for other reasons. I'm glad I had it. It's extremely lightweight. I actually used the cord, as you saw, for repair jobs on my backpack to keep the pockets on. But otherwise, that was it that I used it for. I would recommend some type of cord if you're hanging, you want to dry stuff out. It became extremely useful for that. Other pieces of equipment that I had in the Sierra, just the standard Sierra equipment. The ice axe, I can't remember it was just a very lightweight ice axe. And the trail crampons I had were the Katula K10s. I actually bought from REI the micro spikes, and I bought the trail crampons because of the return policy. I bought both of them, brought them home, tried them both on, and experimented with them indoors. And what I found is the micro spikes were much harder to get onto my shoes than the trail crampons. Once the trail crampons were sized to the shoe, they were real easy to fit on and get on, and I didn't have to sit down with the micro spikes. I had to sit down. I took both hands to get them on, and I didn't like the little chains that were with them. That kind of bothered me. And the spikes weren't that big. I didn't think they were adding much more than what my regular trail running shoes were providing. So I went with the Katula K10s. I was very happy with those for the few times that I actually used those in the Sierra, and I was happy with my ice axe. And then for my bear canister, grab it. For my bear canister, I had the BB500. It worked well. In reality, I hate the damn thing because it's so bulky and it doesn't fit well in the rucksack. It weighs a little bit, and every ounce counts. But as far as a bear canister, I thought it was a great piece of equipment. It's very effective. If I was out just section hiking or just going for a weekend, absolutely, I think this is a great piece of gear. But when you're through hiking, it's just a horrid piece of equipment. But I did have the BB500. It did not fit all my food that I needed to fit into it, and it's the largest one that they make. But it is a good piece of equipment for what it is supposed to do. What I did is I bought the BB500 and I bought my ice axe from Triple Crown Outfitters. I actually purchased them at the end of November, beginning of December, when they were having their sale, just like everybody else has sales during that time period. And I just asked Yogi to hold on to it before, until I got to Canyon Meadows South. And I would recommend anyone going through the Sierra, going to the PCT, to do the exact same thing. Buy your trail crampons, your ice axe, your bear canister, other things that you think you might need for the Sierra. If Triple Crown Outfitter has it, just buy it from them. It's right there. You don't have to worry about being delivered or having it in a resupply box. It'll be right there waiting for you, and then get it from them, and then you can pick it up and you got it for the hike. That's a good way of doing it. And then also for bear canisters, if you don't want to buy one, you just want to rent one, Triple Crown Outfitters has a policy where they can rent them to you, and then you just drop it off at Kennedy Meadows North. And that would have worked really well for me. I'm glad I still got this. I can use it on other hikes, but I could have just dropped it off. I went to Kennedy Meadows North. I could have just dropped it off there and been done with it. So that's another option for you for your Sierra gear. So now I'm going to go through the electronic gear that I used on the trip. For my headlamp, I used the Petzl Bindi. This is how big it is. It is teeny. It's rechargeable, a little pricey. It costs more than most of your headlamps. But it worked really well. It has 3 settings for white light luminosity, and then it has a red light, and then it has a flashing red light on it. I found this thing to work really well. The lowest white light worked well in camp and then inside the tent. Because I'm such a klutz, I would have to use the medium luminosity for hiking at night, and that's where probably the limitation is. It was good for about 3 hours of hiking, either early morning or at night when the sun went down, and then the battery just kind of run down a bit. So if you're going to do a lot of night hiking, you probably want to get a bigger version. But if you're just doing a little bit of night hiking, just a few hours a day, that sort of thing, then it worked really well. And then the most powerful light would be really powerful, and I would use that when if I was getting lost at night and I really wanted to see what was going on around me, or I heard something and I wanted to beam it. I would use it. But nice rechargeable piece of equipment, worked well, and it really small. I would keep it in the pocket on my pouch, on my rucksack, on the waistband, and kept it there the whole time. So recommend getting this if this fits your needs. I would get that. Garmin InReach. This is an incredible piece of equipment. This is actually the DeLorme InReach. My wife and I, we own a 42-foot blue water cruising sailboat, and we've had this on our boat since probably they came out, and for obvious reasons. And so when I came to hiking the PCT, instead of buying another one, I just pulled it off our boat and have been using it the entire time. And then I got the subscription where my wife and family members could text me any time of the day as much as they wanted. And it was extremely well worth that. I mean, not only for emergencies and all that kind of stuff, just communications. Because so often my phone did not work. There was no reception, no cell. Even in some of the towns, they don't have cell. It's just amazing. But I was able to have communication with my family anytime I wanted with this. Just a great piece of gear that you can have. And I would recommend, if you're watching this and you have a child that's going to be doing a thru hike, for their birthday or for their Christmas or for a combined gift, buy this or buy the mini for them and pay for the subscription. And not for them. Don't do it for them. I mean, the little, ungrateful bastards are going off for 6 months on a hike, leaving you alone. Don't buy it for them. Buy it for yourself, for your own peace of mind, because you're going to know your kid's okay, and you're going to be able to track them and see where they're at. I'm 57 years old. My dad is 82 years old, but I'm still his son. And every morning he would get up, and several times during the day he would get up and he'd go on his computer and he could see where I was and what I was doing. He was able to track me, and he could text me and send me little words of encouragement, Now, my dad's a retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major, so his words of encouragement, were along the lines of, pick it up, you're moving like pond water. But the love was there. So I would recommend, if people have one of these, if you're going to be hiking the PCT, carry this or carry the Spot or some type of satellite communication device and be able to pay for the subscription to allow your family to talk to you, have that peace of mind. Just extremely well worth it piece of equipment. One of the pieces of equipment that's not on my list on the Trek homepage is my little scan disc. This is what I listen to music on. Listening to music on my phone, it makes the whole phone activated, and so it's power hungry. Whereas this thing takes up very little power, and I had a whole bunch of songs on it, and I had books on it. Never wound up listening to any of the books. And it doesn't use very much power at all. So I use this thing during the entire through hike. Again, it's just a scan disc, MP3 player, a lot of music on it. Good piece of equipment. And then to charge all my stuff on the trail, I had two things. One, I had the Anchor 20,000 milliamp power bank. This weighs a bit. This is probably overkill for you if you were just hiking the PCT. But I was hiking and I was vlogging. I had electronic equipment I needed to keep powered up. So I carried this thing and it worked well. This thing would keep everything charged that I had for over a week. So I was very happy with this piece of equipment. But again, it's quite heavy. And then as backup, because I'm a masochist, I had, again, a 10,000 milliamp charge bank. And probably this thing by itself would have been enough if I wasn't vlogging. This probably would have kept everything charged up for while I was out on trail. And so if I was going to do it and I wasn't going to vlog, I'd probably carry one of these. I wouldn't carry that other piece of device just because it's too heavy. And then the other thing that I carried was the Anchor 60 watt dual USB-C battery, or excuse me, wall charger. This was overkill. I bought this because I was concerned about being able to rapidly charge while I was in town. And that's exactly what this thing does. It puts out a lot of power and it'll charge up things really, really quick. But it is very heavy, relatively speaking. And I never had an issue. When I was in town, I always had time to charge. I would have had more additional time to charge. I didn't have to worry about a rapid charge. And so I didn't need this extra weight. But again, I was concerned. I was vlogging. And so I wanted something that would be able to do that. So I wound up probably carrying about 1.5 pounds more equipment in electronics than I needed to had I not been vlogging. For the cords, these are the 4 cords I carried. I got the foot-long ones on Amazon, and just different ones. I mean, USB-C to USB-C, USB to micro USB, just different types of cords. I kind of went through, what do I need to charge both from the wall socket, and what do I need for my equipment to charge both on the banks. And it wound up being 4 cords to be able to cover everything I needed to do. And I had the little 1-foot cords, so they didn't take up too much space and not too much weight. And they worked really good. For my camera that I used, which I'm recording on right now, I had a DJI gimbaled pocket camera. Very nice piece of gear. All the moving shots that you see during my videos, they were shot with that. I mean, 3 years ago, that piece of equipment would cost thousands of dollars, and now it's only a few $100s. And so really happy with it, and the quality that comes out with it. It has really good external mics on it, 2 external mics, and then it allows, or internal mics, and then it allows an external mic to be used like I'm using right now on it. And it has a very nice quality, crisp camera. For a lot of the still shots or the scenic shots, I had my Samsung 8 phone that I would use, and use the camera on it, and either use the forward camera when I'm taking shots, or when I'm taking videoing myself, I would use the front-facing camera so I could see to make sure I was still in frame. And of course, as some of you have recognized, is that then gives the reverse picture. I tried reversing it back so it would be right. You can do that with pictures. When you do that with video, it actually reverses the audio. And so the picture looks great, but you can't understand a word the person's saying. So I wasn't able to reverse those pieces of it. But that's what I used, the Samsung 8 Held up really well. I've had this camera or this phone for quite a long time. It's the active version, so it's waterproof. Used it for my business phone when I owned a business down in Key West, and it just worked out really well. For editing all of my videos, the program I used on the phone, and I did all my editing and posting from the phone. I didn't use a computer at all, or a tablet or anything else. I did everything on my phone. And the program I used is KindMaster, and I can't say enough about that program. I mean, it costs a little bit of money. I can't remember what it was, like $60 for 1 year, but just works extremely effective. I did not use all of the features that come with it, but really intuitive. You can put out good quality videos without, and it was very efficient for me to be able to use it. So I would highly recommend, if you're going to vlog something, pay the extra money, get the subscription to KindMaster. It comes with a lot of music that comes with, and the features on it are just really, really nice. And so that's what I did for posting on my phone. So the last couple of items that I'll go over as far as equipment, trekking poles. I had the Black Diamond carbon fiber alpine trekking poles with the cork handle. I think I talked about these on one of my videos. Just absolutely love these things. They work tremendous. They got a lot of abuse because I have a lot of dexterity, so they took a lot of abuse during my time. Just held up wonderfully. I had to adjust them every single day because they were both my trekking poles, but they also served as my poles for my tent. So I had to adjust their height every day to accommodate my arm length, and then also for the tent height. And never had any issues with them. I had one piece of plastic on one of the covers break off, but the metal that actually secures the pole, that continued to work well. The cork worked well, just some minor nicks and scrapes on it and on the straps. But overall, these just perform wonderfully. And you can tell, if you look at this, this is my left hand trekking pole, and this is my right hand trekking pole. And look at the ends there. Can you tell which arm is dominant? Just pretty amazing. I wore these down to the stubs, and they performed admirably. So really, really happy with those. And one of the things I failed to mention when I was talking about my phone, one of the other major items on my phone that I used was Guthook. It's the app that just about every thru-hiker that's out there uses to be able to navigate. It comes in 5 different parts if you're going to do the full PCT. And when you download each of the parts, you have to make sure you not only download the app that goes with it for that section, but you also have to download the topographic maps, whether you like meters or feet. You have a choice there, and then also the satellite imagery and the images that come along with to show you what the trail looks like in certain sections. You have to download those. More than once did I run into a thru-hiker that was not happy with Guthook because, one, they hadn't turned on their satellite tracking on their phone, so they didn't know where they were, and then 2, it was just this line along the screen, and they had no references or anything else like that on it, so they didn't know the rest of the Guthook. And it's not intuitive. You have to spend a little time getting to know the program. But once you know how to work it, it's just absolutely fabulous. It is the way to navigate on the trail. I did carry backup paper maps in the Sierra. For the rest of the time, I really wasn't concerned. I would do a map recon before I left any major area. I'd figure out what my panic azimuth was. If for some reason the maps on my Guthook didn't work and the maps on my Garmin didn't work, and just kind of everything died, what's the panic azimuth that I could walk to get to the nearest hardball road, and then flag down somebody for help. So I would do that for each of the sections. The only time I was concerned was in the Sierra, where it's a little further, and you gotta watch yourself. So I used the PCTA paper maps during that portion, but otherwise I relied solely on gut hook, and it's just awesome. I mean, it tells you where the campsites are, where the water sources are, what's coming up, major concerns, and then all the comments that come into it, because you can contribute to it. If you walk across a water source and the water source is dry, well, you can put in there, hey, there's no water here. And so people would look at that, and you can update yourself and say, hey, yeah, I can count on this source, I can't count on this one, or where's the water cache? And is there water there right now? So if you're going to hike the PCT, just pay the money, buy gut hook, buy every section of it, and then make sure you download every piece that goes with it so you maximize the program. So that's the equipment I used. I actually have my full equipment online, posted online. As some of you know, I was supposed to vlog for the trek originally pre-COVID, and I was supposed to be one of their trail correspondents. So my gear list is still up on the Trek page under my authors page. And so what I will do in the comment section is I will put a link there to my gear, and you can run through it. I might have missed some things on this video, and there might be a couple things missing from that, but you'll get a general idea. And I repeat what I said at the beginning. This is the equipment that I used. I enjoyed almost every piece of equipment. I did a lot of research, and so I chose wisely, and it all worked pretty much for me, except for a couple minor pieces. And I wasn't worried about cost. You don't need to spend as much money as I did. You don't need to spend anywhere close to that. You can buy other stuff, and the most important thing on trail is not the equipment. It's to be physically ready for the demands of the through hike, and then just have a great mental attitude throughout the hike, and that's what's going to get you to the end of the trail. It's not going to be any piece of equipment. So now what I like to do is go through and talk about my resupply strategy, resupply boxes, and the food that I ate and how that changed as far as nutrition during my hike. Originally, pre-COVID, I had over 30 resupply boxes that I was going to send to myself while on trail. And when COVID happened, I was concerned that a lot of the places I was going to send a box would not be open, and I would not be able to receive a box there. So I consolidated a number of my boxes, and I got it down to 16. I think I finally sent... in the end, I sent 18 boxes to me, 2 to go to the same place because I wanted some extra stuff, and then 1 to an additional area that I wasn't sure about when I started. My wife sent a box there. So 17 areas, new areas, and that was down from about 30. As it turned out, every single place that I was going to originally send a box, except for one, was open. And they were accepting boxes, and they were doing business, and no issues. So had I known that at the beginning, I would have stuck with my original resupply strategy and sent the boxes to all of those locations. But as it were, I went to 16 boxes. It did lead to some pretty lengthy resupplies. In the desert, I did a 210 and then a 260 mile resupply carries. Wouldn't recommend that to most. And then in the Sierra, I did a 170 mile resupply and about a 200 mile resupply carries. And again, I don't know if I would recommend that to too many people, because it's a lot of food to carry, and it was quite heavy, and it wasn't pleasant for part of the time. And it was not necessary. again, for some of those areas, it just wasn't necessary because the places I wasn't counting on and thought they'd be closed, they weren't. They were open for business, and they were accepting resupply boxes, and they were accepting visitors and accepting thru-hikers. And so that was a lesson learned. I primarily counted on the U.S. Postal Priority Mail Standard boxes. That's what I used, just because of the cost. It's like $20, and you can stuff those things full of about 5-6 days worth of food, and you're okay. If I had to carry, do shoes, because I bought all my shoes beforehand and would send me myself shoes periodically, or clothing or something like that. Then I had a bigger box. And then some of those areas don't accept the U.S. Postal. They only accept UPS or FedEx. And I would go with UPS on that case. And if you're going for a bigger box, they are cheaper going with UPS than going with the U.S. Postal system. That's one of the lessons learned my wife told me at the end of it. Bigger box, go with UPS. Smaller box, go with U.S. Postal. Was her lessons learned when she was sending me all the boxes. And so the food I'm going to show you is what I carried, and most of it I had in my resupply boxes, and then I just supplemented as I went along. When I would be in a small town and a convenience store there, that sort of thing. So and I'll go from breakfast through the day to dinner and talk about that. So for breakfast, the first thing I would have every morning is a protein mix. This is 2.5 scoops of whey protein. I mean, you can pick the brand, but it's 2.5 scoops, the scoops that come with the packets of whey protein. And then there's a scoop of the green stuff. And I can't remember what brand I used, but it's the daily dosage requirements or recommended requirement for all the vitamins and minerals you would get from having a daily servings of fruit and vegetables. So between the whey protein and the green stuff, that would be the very first thing that I would eat in the morning. Just mix it with a little bit of water and down it. Tasted okay, but I knew it was really good for me. So that was the first thing that I would have. And when I started off, that was pretty much all I had for breakfast until I realized that wasn't enough. So after that, I would continue to have that. But then with that, I would heat up 3 of the Quaker oatmeal, instant oatmeal packets. You know, the instant oatmeal that comes in little packets. I would have 3 packs of those. I would heat the water and eat 3 packs of those in the morning, along with the protein mix. I would have that, and then I would also have 2 Pop-Tarts. And I'm going to start off right now. The food I'm going to show you, or what I moved to, I would never eat. I mean, the protein I would eat, but most of what I'm going to show you, half, is stuff I would not eat. I'm a pretty healthy eater, but on the trail, it becomes a simple matter of calories and surviving. And if you've been watching the videos, you know I went through a period where I was just not getting enough calories in my body, and I lost way too much weight. And so I had to, through trial and error and talking to other thru-hikers, I had to figure out what would work for me. And what I'm going to show you or talk about is what worked for me. I'm not going to say it's going to work for you. It might not have been the best option, but it did work, and it got me through the end. And I didn't have any weight issues after I started gaining back some weight, and then I didn't have weight issues, loss of weight issues at the end of my hike. And so what I came up with did work for me. So back to the Pop-Tarts. This is a staple, a food group for thru-hikers and for soldiers alike. I don't know why. I would say strawberry's the best. My son would vehemently disagree and argue the point. In fact, we have argued about that. But 2 Pop-Tarts. And if I was real hungry at night, the Pop-Tarts wouldn't last until morning. They would be the midnight snack. But that's what I have for breakfast. The whey protein with the green stuff, 3 oatmeal packets, and then the Pop-Tarts. And that would be my morning to get me going. And then during the day, I would have 3 different energy bars, and I had all sorts of assortment of energy bars that I would carry, and it would be in my resupply box. Weight versus calories, energy bars weigh the most. They're just heavy, and then you're probably going, yeah, that's not really that heavy. But put 15 or 20 of these in a rucksack, and it adds up a little bit. So the energy bars were one of the things I would make sure I ate religiously every single day, because I was carrying them, and I knew I had at least 3 a day that I needed to eat, and I wanted to get rid of that weight. And they're good calories, just heavy calories. So I'd have about 3 of those a day, along with a Snickers bar. That was something I added after I knew I needed to add more calories. Is every day I would have a chocolate bar, and usually that was the first thing that went on trail before the energy bars. I would eat that, and then during the day, while I was out, I'd have some sort of snack, cookies or candy or gummy bears or something like that. I would eat during the day. Besides the energy bars, I'd stop for a break, and something would come out of the rucksack that I probably bought at the convenience store. Usually they weren't in the resupply boxes, but it'd be something, a treat that I would want, and I'd buy enough for whatever cover it. Other things I would have in the resupply box that I thought were pretty good, and I would eat peanut butter, and then Nutella. And sometimes both of these would be in the resupply box, and I would have them on trail. Typically, these didn't last more than the first couple days. I mean, they went pretty quick because I would eat them. And the nice thing about these little jars is they're really good for trash compactors. On trail, you have to carry all your trash out, as you know, and a lot of times there's not a trash can. So you'll go 4, 5, 6 days carrying your trash. And but if you eat all of the Nutella or all the peanut butter pretty early, you can stuff a whole lot of trash in this teeny little bit amount of space. And so that's one nice thing about these jars, is they become nice trash compactors. So you're not carrying a huge bag of trash around. It's all condensed into those. And so that'd be something that I would eat along the day as well. Usually I'd have a late lunch. Between that and the snacks and cookies and all that, that was pretty much what I would eat during the day. But I would have a late lunch, usually around 3, 4 o'clock. I would cold soak a ramen noodles. I'd put that inside my V-Bot, and I would cold soak it. It takes about an hour, and then these things are fine. And then with that, I would add the Spam packets. I'm not a big fan of the tuna packets. I just don't care for how they taste. A lot of people like them, and they're fine with them, but I can eat these every day. So I would have the Spam and the ramen noodles, and that would get me through till dinner time. And I would usually eat my dinner meal sometime around 7, 8 o'clock, after I'd set up the tent. I got all cleaned up, and I sorted through. It was one of the last things I did before I went to bed, would eat dinner. And my dinners consisted of either the Mountain House or Backpackers Pantry meals. This is what I would have. A lot of thru-hikers don't eat these. And really the limitation is cost. If you buy these on trail, they cost about $11, $12 a pop. I bought mine all online, and I bought them all on sale. I waited for the sales, and I bought them all online, and I knew I needed so many of them, so I bought them in bulk. So I wound up paying, on average, $5.50 for each one of these. And that's why I know my resupply boxes pay for themselves, because 5 of these in a box, and I've covered the cost, the $20 cost of the box, the mail cost for the box, and everything else is, to me, is a write-off. It's free. So that's why I knew all of my boxes paid for themselves. Now I would ship these in these packets like this. That would come in the resupply box, But before I put them in my backpack, I would actually cut these things open, dump out the contents into a quart-size bag, because this is a lot of trash and this is bulky. And you want to condense it down, you want to get rid of as much trash as possible, and a quart-size little Ziploc bag is a lot smaller than this thing. And so that's one of the things I would recommend that you do if you're doing a resupply box to yourself. Make sure you get enough quart-size Ziploc bags to condense these down. And there's a little dissect packet that's inside those. Get rid of those as well. That is not pepper. One of the things I learned, that's not pepper. First week I was, eating the Mountain House and Backpacker Pantry. I'd see that little thing and I thought it was pepper to taste. I'd dump it in the food. And after about a week or two of eating these things, I actually read the label on the dissect packet, and in big bold letters it says "Do not eat." So yet again, I prove I'm a guy. I don't read labels. But you can get rid of that dissect packet. It is not pepper. So that's what I would have for dinner. And of course, if you've been watching my videos, the last thing I would eat every night is a Hershey bar. And that was something that I added, of course, to my meals after I realized I wasn't putting in enough calories. For hydration, what I would have, I just don't like the taste of water most times, and most of the water on trail was very good. I mean, I'd filter it and I had no issues, but I would either put some type of Crystal Light packets, and I'd have a bunch of these in my my resupply box. I also would have these things here. It's liquid IV. This is the equivalent of 3 sports drinks in one of these. And I drank one of these every single day in the desert, and then the rest of the trail, maybe 2 out of every 3 days, I would have one of these to make sure I was keeping the right electrolytes in my body. And these work really well. You can get them at Costco. Again, it's called Liquid IV, and then of course, you know where to get these. There's Crystal Light packets. They work really well. And then one of the last things that I had is different sauce packets. These are just different condiment packets. You can buy condiment packets online. I was surprised on how incredibly expensive they are if you buy them online. So what my family did is I knew 6 months out that I would be going on a thru hike. So I just told people in my family, I said, look, if you're going to go to Taco Bell or you're going to go to Popeyes or something like that, just save the packets for me. And within 6 months, I had more packets, more of these sauce packets than I knew what to do with. And so I always had plenty, and I always had some in my resupply box to be able to take care of me. And like I said, that's basically what was in the resupply box, all the food I'm talking about. But normally I was next to a convenience store, and if I wanted something, I wanted a treat or something like that, I would supplement my food with something from the convenience store. But the food I had in my box really worked for me, and like I said, it adjusted over time. Other things I would have in each one of my resupply boxes, I used to have soap. I bought a bunch of these before I went on trail, and about 6 or 8 of them, and I had them in various resupply boxes. I stopped carrying soap. It became a weight that I didn't use. Sorry, hygiene kind of goes out the window in certain respects while you're on trail, and so I just stopped carrying the soap. But I did buy some of those. Each resupply box had a small tube of toothpaste in it. I got these at a dollar store, and then I would switch out every 6 days or so. Whenever I got a resupply box, I'd get rid of the old one, put a new one in there, and I was good. For shaving, each box had a disposable razor. I would shave in town, and then I would get rid of the razor. I wouldn't carry it with me on trail. And I also had half a bar of soap in each one of the resupply boxes, so I knew I could shower, I could clean myself off, that sort of thing, and I could shave the body to get rid of all the unwanted hair. Normally, I'd want to do laundry. In some of the laundry places, you have to pay extra for soap. I have a skin sensitivity to a lot of laundry detergents. So I would carry my own pod. That would come in the resupply boxes. This soap doesn't affect my skin, and so I'd have my own laundry pod with me at all. And that was in the resupply box, and again, it wouldn't go with me on trail. I would carry, or in the resupply box would be suntan lotion. This is a bag. I bought a number of those big tubes of suntan lotion and just squeezed them down and put them in these little Ziploc bags. And then I would cut a hole at the end here and then put it in my little suntan lotion hard case that I would keep in my side pocket and just refill it, every 4, 5, 6 days. Whenever I got a resupply box, I'd put some suntan lotion and resupply that. Already talked about the tablets. I would have those. I would have a number of these in the resupply boxes. Again, 4 per day is what I would use. This also has some Leukotape in it. It has some dental floss that I would use. And then this one also has a tiny bottle of super glue. And I would carry super glue with me while I was on trail. My sunglasses, if you saw my sunglasses at the beginning of my videos, those sunglasses lasted through the desert, and then they just got too scratched up and were terrible. So I bought a cheap pair of sunglasses at Triple Crown Outfitters, paid about $12 for them. They had good UV protection, but nothing special about them. And they lasted me through the entire rest of the hike, although I did have to super glue them twice because the frame broke. And that would be one of the recommendations I would make as far as equipment is don't spend a lot of money on sunglasses because you're probably going to lose them, or you're going to break them, or they're going to get all scratched up. You're just not going to be able to take care of them as much as you might think you're going to, and so don't waste your money on that. Every once in a while I'd send myself some back to tracing. I'm really good at cutting myself, so I'd have something to do that. And then the multivitamin packet. This would be in each one of the resupply boxes. There'd be a Super C or a big vitamin C pill there to flush the body of all those free radicals, and then a multivitamin that would be in there, and then a couple of Aleve pills. And I didn't use Aleve or any type of pain reducer for most of the trip, but when I did hurt my knee for a couple weeks, I would use something to keep the pain down. That's all that was in the resupply boxes, save other items or clothing items or shoes or something like that, something else I wanted to be able to add to it. And the nice thing is I prepared all the boxes before I left, but they weren't sealed up, and my wife could adjust and put anything, if I said, hey, can you add this to it, she was able to do that, and she would send off the boxes when I hit a certain mile marker. She knew that it was time that the next box would be sent off and get there and arrive there in time for me to pick it up. I never had any issues with picking up my resupply boxes. They were always there, and I never had a problem with the time frame. I only used, out of the 18 boxes I sent finally, I only used the U.S. Post Office twice. The first one was right at the beginning, so I knew just based on the mileage I was going to be there during a weekday, so there was no issue with picking it up. And then at the very end in Stehekin, that was the last one, and that was where I had to really think about making the right mileage to get there in time so I wouldn't be sticking around over a weekend. Was at the very end. But for the rest of the places, they all went to private businesses, companies, grocery stores, that sort of thing, that are happy to accept hiker boxes and hand them out when you arrive. And they have extended hours, and they work on Sundays, and so I never had a problem picking up my boxes. As far as the list of locations, it's pretty standard. If you go online and Google Artemis hikes, you'll see the resupply strategy there. Or if you go to Halfway Anywhere and Google Halfway Anywhere resupply, you can look on that and they'll let you know, the areas that accept hiker boxes, the type of hiker boxes that will be accepted, whether it's FedEx, UPS, or USPS, and the address to send it to, and are there any special instructions. That's and that'll satisfy. And then it's just a matter of deciding when you want to have food sent to you. And I will talk about that more in my lessons learned video. But I did want to go through what was in a hiker box, what I ate every day, and then the other items that were in the hiker box. Hey everybody, it's been about a month since I've been off trail. I've taken a little time to edit this video, and even in its edited version, it is very long. I understand that. But if you watch this video and you watch it to the end, then it's probably because you're going on a thru hike soon and you wanted to know what equipment I carried in my assessment of it. And I tried to be quite honest with that. And then also my food. What did I eat? And then how did I resupply? And again, I tried to be as honest and forthcoming as I could be. It's a lengthy video. It's a big topic to cover. And then within the video itself, in the dialogue, I answered a number of questions that I received either in the last video, vlog 27, where people posed questions to me for this video or the next one, or on my Facebook page. So I tried to answer those. So I get it. It's a long video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be coming out with the lessons learned video in about 2 weeks. I've been working on that one, and I wanted a little time before or after I got off trail to put that one together because I wanted to make sure that what I was putting out was objective lessons learned and not based on emotions. So I hope you enjoy the video, and hope you enjoy the next one. See you there.
There was a time in this fair